Our next speaker is definitely, I would say, the element of water is her primary force. Carol Carter is an icon in the watercolor world, an icon in the contemporary art world, and she's an absolute rock star in France. We are very lucky to have her. If you talk to people in the contemporary watercolor art world and you say, name your top 3 artists in this medium, her name would be among the 3. We're very lucky to have her as our esteemed guest artist and as a speaker at this symposium. Now, when Carol was graduating with her MFA, one of her advisors told her, if you want to make a living as an artist, it's not going to happen with a transparent medium. So she worked in acrylic for many years and then made the decision, and I'll let her tell you, I think if I recall correctly, in the early 2000s, where at one point she made a decision to go back to watercolor. And I don't think she's ever regretted it. And certainly those of us who appreciate her work don't regret it. I was out shopping for dining room chairs, and I walked into Crate and Barrel, and I was looking around, and I looked up on the wall, and I went, that's a Carol Carter painting. How did that happen? How did she get her paintings picked up by this major national chain, home furnishings chain? So there's an interesting business story there. And that's what Carol's going to share with us today, is she's had not only a fascinating journey as an artist, but she has a unique approach to the business of art, which is something we all need to learn more about as artists, because we live in a time of tectonic shift in the art world, where the whole gallery system is changing. What they do for us as artists is changing. Galleries are going out of business. Younger artists are working directly for themselves, marketing themselves and selling their own work. And Carol has had a very interesting journey from one way of doing business to another way of doing business that has proven to be very, very successful. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce to you Carol Carter.
So thank you so much for inviting me to be your guest artist and be a part of your group this week. I've truly learned a lot of how important it is to be a community together. As a solo painter and worker bee in St. Louis, it's real rewarding to see all the camaraderie here and all the strong voices. I'm a little nervous because I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. You all have succeeded at much of what I'm going to show you that I've demonstrated in my own career, but it will be a nice little visual narrative of the last 13 years of my life. Kathy said it best. I've been painting about 40 years, but I built my career on acrylic. And that was because that was encouraged and promoted in graduate school. But I never didn't do watercolor. I did it on the side, and it was my secondary medium. But in 2006, my life changed enormously, and I had to become a more aggressive businesswoman with art. So that, hence the journey I'm about to share with you. So Kathy asked me to share a little bit about my work because some of you might not know some of the painting that I've done. So the first few slides will be different subjects that I've done over the years. So I do a theme called Swimmers, figurative swimmers based in water environments. Oops, too fast. This is a 40 by 60 watercolor. A lot of my paintings are large scale by choice. A lot of my swimmers are psychological, dealing with the female journey in life. A lot of it is autobiographic. It's very introspective. This is Metamorphosis. The florals and botanicals are lovely. They sort of finance the figurative work. This shows you the scale. I grew up in Florida, and I have a love and a respect for alligators, and I believe that they are maligned. I mean, I don't like when they hurt people either, but they have endured since prehistoric time. It's my spirit animal. So I do a whole lot of images of gators, and in fact, in 2010, I was the visiting resident artist fellow for the Everglades National Park. So I got to learn a lot about gators then. And last year I did a series on horses, which you have one here in the collection in the museum. I did 52 horses in 52 weeks and had an exhibition at the end of the year, although I ended up doing 67 horses. So this was the presentation. I'm not a horsewoman, but I love them. Okay, so here we go. This is just a quick PowerPoint of how I assumed ownership of my career somewhere around 1997, but really I had to kick it into high gear in 2006 when my life changed enormously. I grew up. So the first thing I feel you need if you want to be a successful artist is to have and maintain the best studio possible, not live in a great house and paint in a warehouse, which is what I had done for 25 years. So the reverse happened. I got a great studio. That corner space with the light is a condoed business, 1,000 square foot studio. And it was renovated to my specifications, so it's built as a studio, but I can switch it into a gallery whenever I want to have my own exhibition. So I had to reteach myself how to paint in the public's view. I had painted in a warehouse loft on the 6th, 7th, and 8th floors of warehouses in downtown St. Louis. But I was too lonely after 20 years, so I thought if I could see people at street level, I would be emotionally more grounded, hence my street level studio. But what I didn't bargain for was the neighborhood bonding with me. And so I am the neighborhood artist. These are openings. This is the interior of the space. I paint on the floor. I cleaned it up. And that's what I look like most of the day. I have north and west light. Can get pretty busy there. That shows you some of the dynamic. It's very nice to have a place of business for your clientele, because when they come, they don't doubt the seriousness of your commitment to your career. You need an artist statement, a resume, and business cards. You all have those. My business cards are all playful, and I decided to do as many images as I could on each card so that people would have fun choosing and taking ownership of that image. In 1997, my brother built my website, and it was, I think, a little in the early years of artists having their website, and that's what really catapulted me to a wider audience. Up until then, I was just a local artist. I had a good reputation in St. Louis. I was totally gallery represented, very collectible, but after a while, your clientele, you saturate your clientele, your market. So with the website, it broadened my market enormously. So every artist today should have a website, and these are the other secondary places where you can build a quick website or have one of your kids do it for you. My brother maintains mine, and I don't update it very much, but it's about a 20-year overview of my career. I rely on social media to keep my online presence updated. And the reason is he won't do it anymore. But it's okay. But every time I talk to my people about taking it down and replenishing it with a new image, everybody votes it down because it is like a book of my career. So they want to keep it that way. I'm happy to do it. So, after 2006, Facebook became so popular, and I jumped on board right away, mostly to keep in touch with my son, who is in China. But early on, I saw the potentiality for just showing what I was doing on a daily basis as an artist. So Facebook offered pages in addition to their profiles. So your Facebook and your Instagram, it's the newspaper of your career. If you have a blog, of which I have two, it's the magazine of your career, and your website is the coffee table book or the catalog of your career. So I have 3 Facebook pages that I maintain. One is a profile page, which I have 5,000 friends, and that is what, I just try to keep it to me as a person, a little bit of art. I have a business page, which is just art, and I was able to grow that to 118,000 followers, which is pretty unusual for me. And then I have another one just to deal with my teaching schedule. I have about 1,000 followers, and that's a lot to maintain. And this shows you the different Facebook profiles. 116, a little lower now. Well, 118 if you count the other page. Instagram is really where all of you should be. I'm sure you all have Instagram accounts, but it's the hot place to be as an artist now. That's where I spend most of my time. You can share your work, your finished work that you complete. You can share the journey of painting the work, the process of painting, the different stages of how your studio looks in getting ready for events. It gives your audience an awareness of you as an artist, as a person. And what I've learned from all of social media is that people don't just want to see the art. They want to see the person that creates it as well, your life, your challenges, not necessarily the negative stuff, but some of the deadlines and other things. So this is where I build a whole new audience. So each social platform has its own world in and of itself. And one thing it allows you to do, it allows you to dialogue with people that write into you, and then you can write back. And truthfully, I have a career today because of social media. So this is my Instagram page. This is what the profile looks like. So you can clean it up every day and just show your polished work, but then also every day you can put on different things that you might be doing, like this event here, I've been posting about it, to keep it updated. You tag your photos so that you cross-reference with other people. There's a storyline at the top of the page that you should take advantage of. You should be sure to like other artists' posts so that they become more of a community with you. And then Facebook and Instagram are really good at advertising. And that's a wonderful way of growing an event that you might be giving a studio opening or a collection of work somewhere. Put it on Instagram, and they ask you all the different categories, and you can target your audience and pick your budget. Go as big as you want or keep it reasonable. I post about 3 times a day, which is aggressive. Now, in addition to Instagram, there's YouTube, Pinterest, Etsy, Square, PayPal, and blog. I have all of those. I don't mind them as much as some people, but I do try. You need a PayPal account for international sales. I have 2 blogs, one for artwork under 400. Etsy, I don't mind so much. Square for payments with your phone. Pinterest is good for building your audience on a secondary platform. And the next line of attack, well, the 2 blogs, one is Studio Life and one is Paintings Under 400. And the reason blogs are still important is you can be much more journalistic in your career. You could talk thematically about this event using a lot of words like extraordinary, Steamboat Springs, art opening, Steamboat Art Museum. And the search engines pick up those words and then shoot traffic to your blog, and then they become aware of you as the artist. That's why it's helpful on the internet not just to put out your visual paintings, but you have to put out words associated with your paintings for the search engines. So here's my one blog dealing with my studio, and then the other one, Paintings Under 400. And that's, every single time somebody clicks on something, it will lead them to something else. YouTube is also really important to develop a YouTube channel. I don't quite have that yet. I have about 5 YouTube videos up there from various locations. But as I head into upcoming years, I will develop this more and more. It's more and more important as an artist to do this. Email marketing. Whenever I have an exhibition or a show or a professional accomplishment, I will send out an email. I use MailChimp for under 2,000 email addresses. It's free. So the 2 great email portals are Constant Contact and MailChimp. I have about 2,000 names that I send to, and you can track who opens it, who deletes it, who follows the link. But that's how I drive in traffic to my openings. And that was my last email that I sent out, an announcement about being at this exhibition. So, branding. So if you're very popular on Instagram or Facebook, you can be invited to be a spokesperson for a product. And sometimes you have to do the asking, which I do all the time. I don't always get invited back, but I have 2 branding opportunities, which I'll share with you. But what happens is your identity gets associated with that product. So twice it's pushed out online to bring attention to the fact that you're out there working and you're cooperating with each other's news feeds and each other's followings. So I'm a brand spokesperson for Da Vinci watercolor, and also this wine from Napa Valley. I did the watercolor of the place in France. So I think the best marketing tool today for any artist is your iPhone or digital phone. So this is my brand. Remember I said to you I was the alligator? So this is what I've chosen as my brand identity. So I try to use this in different places to remind people of who I am as a playful but yet courageous artist. I guess I have to push it this way. All right, so that brings you to openings and exhibitions. Of course, that is the holy grail of getting your work out. Now, I am not represented by a gallery in St. Louis by choice. I did that for 15 years, and in 1997, I wasn't making enough money at relying on the gallery dealer in town to do it. So I decided to do my own route in marketing. I figured I could figure it out. And at that point, I would say I was a pretty shy and very soft-spoken artist. So I had to learn to be very brave and very confident and very capable of showing my work and speaking for myself and reading the market and sealing the deal. So I took off one hat and put on another, and I'm pretty confident in both areas now. So I have major shows when I'm invited, and here's one I had in 2012. This was the last show I had of acrylic art. It was a whole exhibition on Italy. These are all acrylic on panel. This is an exhibition I had prior to that on the Low Country, Savannah, Georgia. These are all acrylics on panel, 3 by 8 feet. These are all, this was in a university exhibition hall. This was last year. At an art center outside of St. Louis. This is sort of a retrospective, different chapters of my career. Large-scale watercolor. This is an exhibition I had in Florida at a gallery. But if you don't get those exhibitions all the time, which I don't either, although I try to have one major exhibition a year, you can have pop-up exhibitions, which I find quite effective. And it took a little bit of courage for me to be humble enough to go into these satellite locations and show work, but it's quite fruitful. And I figure if you bring quality to that destination, you're uplifting that environment as well. So instead of looking at it as making me less of an artist, I reversed it and said, I'm bringing something to them, which will be important. So I've shown in coffee shops, banks, storefronts, frame shops, and airport terminals. And a lot of times, the place will purchase the work. So these are two 40 by 60 palms that were collected by the hotel. Narrative, figurative swimmers in a coffee shop. This particular coffee shop asked, well, when they opened in St. Louis, I went to them and I said, you should show local art. And they said, okay, we'll come and see your work. So they love my work. I hung a show there for 3 months. And then I said, okay, I'll take it down and I'll give you other names. And they said, no, we just want your work. That was 12 years ago. And they have 4 locations. So that is like a gallery for me, 4 different locations, ongoing exhibitions. I can change them at any time, which I do. I can have openings there, which they will support. So one simple phone call turned into a collection, a permanent exhibition space. This is another view of the same coffee shop, but a different location for them. A restaurant. And then in St. Louis, our airport invites artists to exhibit for 6 months at a time. And you know how airports are now in terms of volume of traffic. So, like 60,000 people in a week will see your paintings. So this was my suite of watercolors on the elements of nature: fire, wind, earth, and air. And they were shown at the frame shop in a different formation. Of course, there's competitions to build your career. I'm more into the invitational part of the competition, but there's bold brush, which is popular. Have you heard of art in embassies, which I've done? In fact, I was just invited by the U.S. ambassador to Montenegro to show my work there, and I've shown in the Panama City Embassy. It's a great program. The ambassadors see your work, and they work with curators, and they take your work, frame it, crate it, ship it, put it on loan for a few years, and then ship it back. So it's a great, great program, I think. And then there's watercolor competitions and art fairs. I'm not big on the art fair part because I don't have the physical strength, but I've had friends that have made quite lucrative careers doing that, being able to travel. Here's one competition I did enter. It was a competition for gospel singing. So the gospel choirs from churches would compete, and they would get them down to the 20 best. But for some reason, the competition invited one artist per city to do an interpretation of that local gospel choir. So I was chosen, so I photographed this gospel choir. They turned it into, well, this was a large-scale watercolor, but they turned it into a digital experience so you could pick up the phone and listen to the choir. And then they invited me to hear this competition of the 20 choirs, which was amazing. But they also put billboards all over St. Louis to advertise for that festival. And Art Prize, have you all heard of that? It's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The Art Prize, I think, is $100,000 if you win. 250, yeah, well, I didn't get it. But anyway, you have to submit your work with a proposal, and it's got to be somewhat on a grand scale. And then the different venues or sponsors pick you. So I submitted the portraits I've done of my son. I've done a painting of my son every year since he's been born. And here he is up till 26. He's 33 now. But this bank thought it was a great installation, so I've shown them here at Art Prize. And I went a number of times to Grand Rapids for the various events. And of course, the whole city is swarmed with very, very amazing artists. This is a close-up. Shows you a bit of the scale. It was a wonderful installation. And I was invited to share that body of work another time at a university, and I was sometimes the payoff is you're interviewed on TV, which is sort of wonderful in terms of outreach. And sometimes competitions will land you a surprise element. So this competition was a figurative book. I don't even know if they're doing it anymore, New American Painting. But I so much wanted to be in this catalog because it went to every art store and school and university in the country. So I thought if I was just in the catalog, I would get more visibility. And I did get in the book, but I was traveling in Oregon, and I walked into the bookstore, to the art store, and I didn't realize I had the cover. So I was like so surprised. Of course, they didn't tell you, but that would be me. So one thing I've learned over the years, I think humility is the best thing to have as an artist. And somewhere along the line, about 10 years ago, I was really grateful just to be an artist, to be in the middle of the recession, but still to be painting. So I wanted to thank my clients, and I didn't want it to be self-serving. I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be for them. And so I opened up my studio at Christmas to have a party. You know, I'd fill it with the walls with my work and have prices on them. But how much time? 30? Okay, good. We're almost over anyway. But it was more to celebrate them, their presence in my life. But in the end, it's turned out to be one of the best marketing tools I think an artist can have. So what I do is I offer low-cost paintings to my clients so that they're affordable, they're manageable, they're carryable, they're delightful. And it's hard to refuse. And then I swell the location with a lot of good food and wine. So here's a collection of work I did. I did 100 endangered animals one year. And that was exciting. Those are all 5x7 paintings and 8x10 frames. Taught me a lot about wildlife in the world. Start 'em young. But that particular show had a cross-reference of a lot of ages and economic strata. And what happened was, because I told you I'm the artist in the neighborhood, my neighborhood came out in droves because I'm not always open, but when I have an open studio, people flock in because they know it's unique and special. I also did 100 insects, small intruders. That actually started it. So each beautiful painting was in a frame, obviously. And this is just small works. And this would be a holiday open studio with just stuff in the studio. salon style. And here was the collection of horses that I did last year. And another marketing tip for social media, always photograph the sale of your painting with the person who buys it. People love to see who buys your art. And actually, people who buy the art love to be seen. Commissions are very important. Sometimes they push your boundaries, meaning I had to paint the founders of this university, and most of them had passed. So I had to combine the photos. A hospital commissioned me to do all the artwork in the ground floor, the lobby of their hospital. So the whole thing flowed as one artistic statement. I never did get back to the hospital to shoot the installation shots, but these magnolias were part of it. Self-publishing books is a good way to share your work. I do Blurb, and then there's Lulu. Some of my major shows have beautiful catalogs, and I actually get important people to write statements to include in the books. I'm self-represented, but I also have art reps, meaning they sell your work individually, not in a gallery, but they all know that I'm not exclusive to them. So I have many people not many, 2 or 3, but I'm not positioned in any boxed-in way. So these are large-scale prints of my work. Kathy had mentioned Crate and Barrel. So one of my print reps just sells to big box stores. So she takes my work to trade shows and markets it like this. I do not sell any prints, but there are prints of my work. And this is Soft Surrounding. I walked in there last Christmas. I frequently don't know who's purchased it, and this is what I saw. I do get the licensing fee, and Hasbro bought the rights to this puzzle that went worldwide. So you have to decide how much printing you want to do. Now, I didn't do any printing prior to the recession, but after the recession, I offered more of it. And then that brings you to Crate and Barrel. They printed 4 of my paintings over 2 years, and I got the licensing fee, and I made a lot of money, but they made a ton of money. And so that shows you the thousands and thousands of prints. I had to sign them. There's signing them. It was exhausting. But I tell you what, it was really, I would have paid to do that. It was such good visibility for an artist because every painting had a hang tag. That tag there had my name, my picture, my website, my bio. Crate and Barrel was not territorial about the image. They wanted to give back to the artist. Swag, you all know this. Redbubble, t-shirts, wallpaper. These are insects. This wallpaper was designed with the insects. Note cards, lucrative. People love note cards. Temporary tattoos, I'm big on that. Scarves. Lastly, one thing that's really helped me is teaching. I did not take teaching in school. I started teaching more aggressively when my son was out of primary school. And that meant that I had the ability and availability to go teach workshops, watercolor workshops from coast to coast. And as my career grew, my teaching schedule got more and more filled. And one thing that really helped me learn to teach was for 2 years, I taught adjunct faculty at Maryville University. So that is where I learned to teach effectively. And so today, I teach about 30% of the time across the country. I used to teach a little bit internationally. I don't like to do that anymore. It's kind of too far to go. But I think it's really important as an artist, especially a working artist, or somebody like me, I call myself a working artist, is to give back to others what has been given to you, to share. So I feel it's real important to share. So workshops and online courses and YouTube tutorials. So these are my workshops. I love it. I think I'm a good teacher. And it brings you into the most positive environment of students that are anxious and willing to learn. And of course, the best thing to do is to get your courses online, which I've been doing more and more. I offer one online now. And then I also have a DVD. It will get you off the road. So lastly, here you go. You need to keep marketing fresh. You should learn Photoshop if you don't know it. You should take a business course if you're uncomfortable with business, or take a marketing course. And this is it. So if you want to be an artist, you've got to be a business person too. And I truly believe you should represent yourself. Nobody wants you to succeed more than you do. Do not turn your career over to somebody else. I've learned marketing is a numbers game. Do not take it personally. If you don't get something in this instance, you're going to get it in the next if you're patient. And I've learned that over and over again. And one thing I've learned, always be positive. Do not share anything negative. Your clients want to bet on a winner, and they have to hear that from you. And marketing is saying yes to everything. For every 8 leads you have, maybe 1 will pan out. So I've learned to say yes to everything. And if it's inappropriate, it will reveal itself. And sometimes the most simple thing will explode in your face like Crate and Barrel. Do what you love, the money will follow. And that's me.